So a matchup that could determine the Rugby Championship is just about to take place. The Pumas at home taking on the Springboks, and all South Africa need is a win here to walk away as the champions. But this game, it is going to be an epic one. The Pumas coming off a 40-point win over Australia. South Africa coming off 2 back-to-back wins up against the All Blacks. But in this preview, we'll be looking through at the lineups, the key players, a few interesting stats as well about the head-to-head between these two sides, and then at the end, a prediction of who we think will win this contest. But starting off with the away side, the Springboks, like I mentioned, they have had a very strong Rugby Championship so far, getting 4 wins from 4, which if they win this game, it would be their longest ever consecutive winning period of a Rugby Championship or Tri-Nations competition. So that is a pretty big one, trying to go for 6 in a row up against Los Pumas. In their starting lineup, it is Oxnard as the number 1, Malcolm Marx number 2, and then number 3, Thomas du Toit. So a couple changes compared to what we did see up against the All Blacks. The only man keeping his spot in that starting front row, of course, being Oxnard. In the locking duo, we do see Salman Moura once again get the chance here for the Springboks, and he will also be captain in the absence of Sia Khaleesi. Number 5, Ruan Nokia, a man who has won the most lineouts out of any player throughout the Rugby Championship. Only just behind him, Eben Etzebeth will be making his way off the bench for this game. In the loose forward trio, it is Marco van Staden at number 6. He's been pretty unlucky for minutes throughout this Rugby Championship. We've got to remember, he was the guy that was taken out so that Etzebeth could come back in after recovering from his injury. Meant that Marco van Staden, who was initially named, ended up having to sit on the sideline and wait for his opportunity, and now he's got it. If he plays well here, there is a chance that we see him as the number 6 up against Argentina in South Africa. That game taking place next week. Number 7, Ben Jason Dixon, didn't have his best game in his last contest, but he is the type of player, I believe, that if he gets some more minutes, he will continue to grow as an international player. Now, he has to deal with Pieter-Steph du Toit trying to take that number 7 jersey, although we have seen recently Pieter-Steph du Toit extremely versatile, can play 4-5 and also can play in that loose forward trio, which does mean Ben Jason Dixon, if he plays well in these next 2 games, if he is given those chances, perhaps we see a bit of a reshuffle for the Springboks in the November internationals. Number 8, Jasper Wiese. Eldrick Lowe, he's had a very strong start to his Rugby Championship, but he has missed out on the starting chance here. Instead, will find himself coming off the bench. But in the back line, it is Cobus Reinach as the starting 9, with number 10 being Hondre Pollard. Some thought that Mani Libbok was going to get that starting jersey, but instead he will find himself making his way off the bench, which will only be the second time he is taken to the field for this Rugby Championship. His last game up against the Australians, he really hasn't been given a lot of chances, but he has been playing in the Currie Cup to keep him active and give him those minutes heading into international games. In the midfield combo, it will be Lukhanyo alongside Jesse Kriel. Lukhanyo, he's played more of 12 throughout the Rugby Championship. Jesse Kriel, he's played every game, and he's played every game extremely well. So hopefully, if they do win this game, they secure the Rugby Championship. He gets a bit of a rest next week. He's certainly earned it from the work rate that man has been putting out. Out on the left wing, it is Makazole Mapimpi. Did not play in the second test match up against the All Blacks, but he's been really keen to get back out there on the field, definitely with the form that we're seeing from the likes of a Cheslin Colby, a Kurtley Arunsa. He definitely wants to prove that he is up there with the best of them, and Makazole Mapimpi up against Argentina here, he's got the potential of doing so. And out on the other wing, Kurtley Arunsa, he is going to be another guy to definitely watch out for. He's going head-to-head with Mateo Carreras in this game. He's not an easy guy to mark. Kurtley Arunsa should have his hands full for this contest. Number 15, Apalele Fassi. It was pretty obvious who they were going to be going with at 15 when we learnt that Willie Leroux did not travel to Argentina with the squad. Apalele Fassi solid under the high ball, which he has to be because Juan Cruz Malia is across from him, who's been one of the informed 15s throughout the Rugby Championship. But looking through at the Argentine starting lineup, it is Thomas Gasho in the front row alongside Julio Montoya and also Joel Scalavi. Now, Julio Montoya did not take part in the first half of this Rugby Championship, but now that he is back, it just seems like Argentina have found that next gear. We saw it in that game up against Australia. To be down by 20, to then come back and win by 40 is just something you do not normally see. Yes, it wasn't just down to Julio Montoya, but this Argentine side, if they start this match well, they could be pretty dangerous. And I feel like that's one thing that has been impressive about the Argentines up against South Africa. We'll be mentioning a stat a little bit later on, but they're normally ahead at half time. But then from there, second half happens and it goes downhill. For Los Pumas in the locking duo, it is Franco Molina alongside Pedro Rubiolo, who will be the number 5 in the loose forward trio, Pablo Matera, Marcos Crema, and then Joaquin Oviedo as the number 8. Now, he's actually been playing very well, probably the least notable of the names, you could say, in terms of that loose forward trio. Normally it is Pablo Matera, Marcos Crema, and then also Juan Matan Gonzalez. And Oviedo has earned these starting minutes. He's looked really strong off the bench initially, and now gets the chance once again to start. In the back line, it is Gonzalo Berjano. He will be partnering with Thomas Albanoz, the same combination as they went with in the last game up against Australia. Mateo Carreras out on the left wing with Santiago Chocabarez and Lucio Cinti in the midfield. Bautista Dalgui out on the right, and then at number 15, it is Juan Cruz Malia, who's put in some really impressive stats throughout this competition. And I feel like if he has a strong performance from the back here, it will definitely put the South Africans under some pressure. But looking through at the key players. Now, for the All Blacks versus Wallabies game, I did talk about players who I believe needed to step up. But overall, for both of these sides, because they have been getting victories, it makes it a lot easier to just pick the guys who I think will have a better game out of the side. So for the South Africans, I think that Rua Nokia, once again, some people I don't think are giving that man enough credit for what he has been doing at the line-out. It's been extremely strong for the Springboks, and having Malcolm Marx throwing them as well. Yes, he's had a couple scratchy moments throughout the Rugby Championship, but I still feel with his line-outs and Rua Nokia there, that is a very formidable duo that we could see quite a bit in the future, as Nokia, with all the injuries at 5, is slowly cementing himself in that starting side. In terms of the back line, I mean, I'd like to see a great game from Handré Pollard, just because of the amount of 10s at the moment that the Springboks have got on offer, whether that is going to be Sasha, Mani, or Handré. I feel like if all 3 of them are playing well, yes, it makes selections a little bit more tricky, but it also means that they've got insane depth, which I think is what the Springboks have been able to build in the last little while. Lukhanyo, Jesse Kriel, that midfield combo, I'm thoroughly looking forward to seeing. As yes, Damien Dialendi and Jesse Kriel, I think is pretty well cemented. It would be great to see Lukhanyo find that form that he had from only a couple years ago before that big injury that left him out of action for quite some time. Looking through at the Argentine starting lineup, key players Julio Montoya, of course, has to be right up there. And I believe the likes of a Marcos Crema and Pablo Matera, their importance in this game cannot be underestimated. They have to be physical in those breakdowns, because South Africa, the fact that they've got those changes, no Peter Steph du Toit is massive for the Argentines, because he is the type of player who will get to those rucks, get those clean outs. Whereas for the South Africans in this game, they have got Marco van Staden, Ben Jason Dixon, and then also Jasper Wiese, who are all extremely strong, but I just don't know whether or not they've got that same work rate that we normally see from Peter Steph. So that is why I feel Crema as well as Pablo Matera could be extremely handy when it comes to those breakdowns. Plus, Argentina are extremely good at stealing that ball and then scoring straight away afterwards. We saw that in their game up against the Wallabies a couple weeks ago. Juan Cruz Malia as well, I will say, is the other key, just because he has to be strong at the back, because if he is, then it makes it that little bit more challenging for the Springboks to break through. But I mentioned about some stats, and one of them I mentioned a little bit earlier on. Argentina, they normally do extremely well in the first half up against the South Africans. Their last game that they went head-to-head in, Argentina leading that game 10-3 at half-time. But it is quite an interesting one, because of the last 10 games, Argentina have led at half-time on 6 occasions. But of those 6 occasions, they have only gone on to win 2 contests. So it definitely shows that Argentina, yes, they can be strong at the start, and maybe that's when the Springboks are feeling them out a little bit. But as soon as that bomb squad makes their way off the bench, that is normally when the difference is made. and that is normally when the Springboks get themselves that victory. So for Argentina, it's about putting together an 80-minute performance here. They cannot afford to take their foot off the gas, because as soon as they do, that is when the Springboks are going to strike, and I think they'll strike quite often if they do see a weakness. Now, another stat that I mentioned about earlier on is the longest successful winning streak for the South Africans in the Rugby Championship / Tri Nations history. If they win this game, they will achieve that. That will be 6 wins consecutively, 2 wins over New Zealand, 2 wins over Australia just for this Rugby Championship, and then beating the Pumas in last Rugby Championship. So they actually have the potential of winning 7 consecutive games, if not more, carrying over to 2025, as long as they secure the win here and a win next week in South Africa as well. So the Springboks at the moment, they are breaking their own records that they've had from the past. They have got a very strong side, and even though they've gone with a bit more experimental in this game, missing a few of those big faces, they are still more than capable of getting a win here up against Argentina, as long as they don't underestimate the Pumas, because I feel like Australia did that, and then the Pumas just went try after try after try and won that game by the 40. But now we're up to that stage of a prediction. I've stalled long enough. This game, there are 2 ways that it can go. Either Argentina play a blinder and make this really close, or South Africa will be able to control this game, which I feel like the second one at the moment for me is a lot more likely. In their last 8 games playing up against Argentina, South Africa have won by an average margin of around 15. An interesting stat about Argentina, though, is when they've scored 50 points in the game prior, they are 66% likely to win their follow-up game. They've won 4 out of the 6 where that scenario has happened, but it's not too often after they score 50 points that they're then going head-to-head with the world champs. So I'm going to be slightly harsh on Argentina, and I do hope I'm wrong, and I hope that it's a lot closer than I'm about to say, but I think South Africa win this game, and I'm going to say they win it 43 points to 15. I can see this one being a little bit more one-sided. The backline for South Africa is absolutely stacked. Yes, they made some changes in the forward back, but if this ball starts firing out the backline, we are going to see tries, and we could see a lot of them. In some ways, 43 might not be enough points to give South Africa in this contest, but we will have to wait and see. I could be completely wrong. The Pumas could pull off a massive upset, but I just see South Africa being that little bit too strong. Definitely with the Rugby Championship nearly in their grasp, they want to do everything they can to get their hands on that trophy. But nonetheless, I do thank you all very much for tuning in. This game is kicking off at 9 a.m. New Zealand time on Sunday morning, which is 11 p.m. for you guys in South Africa on Saturday night. We are going to be doing the live commentary on the channel, so if you are new, of course, be sure to leave a like and subscribe, but also let me know your score predictions in the comments down below, and I will see you all for the next one.